Love, loss, compassion, and the human spirit. Today's episode has it all. I'm joined today by Karl Connor, a remarkable individual whose journey through adversity has transformed him into a beacon of hope and resilience in the realm of mental health advocacy. As a mental health ambassador, Karl's mission transcends personal tragedy. He tragically lost his first wife to illness, an experience that fundamentally altered the course of his life. Karl and his family found solace and support through Listening Ear, a charity that provided invaluable assistance to him and his children during their darkest moments. Inspired by the kindness and support he received, Karl now serves as a trustee for the organization, paying forward the compassion that helped him navigate his own journey. But Karl's story doesn't end there. In a remarkable gesture of love and remembrance, he reached out to none other than Richard Branson, the visionary entrepreneur and founder of Virgin Group, and who Karl and his wife had met a few years before. Karl's wife had told Branson that she didn't have long to live and asked him if he would take her on his spacecraft. She tragically passed before Virgin Galactic was launched, and Karl reached out to Branson to ask if he would take a photo of his wife in space. Branson honored Karl's request, demonstrating the extraordinary impact of human connection and empathy. So Karl, thank you very much for joining Success Matters. We've known each other already through our business and business dealings, but you there's much more to you, of course, than the business dealings that we had. You, a few months ago, posted a post on LinkedIn that went viral, and that was about you having a picture with Richard Branson. So could you tell us a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah, so I think, as I've mentioned to you before, I'm married now, but my previous wife sadly passed away in 2015. When she became ill, obviously, you put life into perspective, and she wanted to do some sort of bucket list type holidays. So we went to Morocco, and we stayed up in the Atlas Mountains in a place called Casbah Tamadot, which is a Richard Branson, Virgin limited edition hotel. Anyway, we turned up at the hotel, relaxing by the pool, had a nice time. And then one day went to breakfast. I'm sitting at a table at breakfast, and my wife turns around to me and says, Richard Branson's sitting behind you. And I went, come on. And I turned around, and there he was sitting on his own. So I thought, nothing ventured, nothing gained. I just went up and introduced myself to him and complimented him about how nice the hotel was, how good the staff were, etc., etc. Mm-hmm. And we had a brief chat, 5 minutes. Didn't want to sort of take up too much of his time. And then we had breakfast. Then we're lazing by the pool, and the hotel manager came up to us and said, "This is really quite a small hotel." Right. He came up to us and said, "What are your plans for dinner?" And I said, "Don't have any particular plans." He said, "Oh, well, Mr. Branson has asked if you would like to join him in a small group for dinner." So I said, "Wow, okay, great, fantastic." So we went for dinner, and there was about, 12 people, maybe something like that. We were sat right in front of him. There was a few sort of celebrity type people and successful business people there who I'd never met. We had some quite interesting conversations.
Yeah.
And the subject of him going to space came up. And my wife, Kat, joked with him, about her going to space with him. And he sort of said, yeah, of course, jokingly, obviously.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know how I ended up getting his email address, but I kind of kept in touch with him over the years, sort of thing. And then I decided to ask him, I think it was during COVID times, when he was going to space. And he said, coincidentally, I'm going in July. This was like May, I think it was, or something.
Right.
And I said, well, do you remember my wife jokingly asked you if she could come up to space with you? And he said, yeah, I remember, yeah. I said, well, sadly, she's passed away. I said, but how do you fancy taking a picture of her and the kids? Incidentally, I had me in as well, but that was just because the photo I ended up picking. I said, do you mind, taking it with you? So he said, yeah, send me a photo. And I didn't know whether he would or he wouldn't, but anyway. I then got a call from his EA. Says, here's Mr. Richard sent me this picture to give to you. So I've got this picture of him in his spacesuit holding a picture of us, which was incredible.
Oh, wow.
And then I looked on, I can't remember whether it was CNN or CBS or something like that. They had the post-flight interview with him.
Mm-hmm.
And he brought out these pictures and started talking about who was in his pocket. And there was only, I think it was, there was a news presenter, which was a bit of a joke that he had in there. And the rest of the people in there were his family. And then there was us. So I kind of put something on LinkedIn, not for any other reason other than to sort of say, as a sort of inspirational thing, if you don't ask, you don't get. Not expecting any particular reaction to it. And it ended up going viral. I think it had about 8 million views or something like that.
Wow.
And 156,000 likes, whatever, and about 6,000 comments. It was insane. I got invited to go on ITV News to talk about it, but I think, as I said to you previously, I kind of declined that because I just thought I don't necessarily want that kind of attention. But it was flattering to be asked. But yeah, it was, quite an unusual thing to happen. And I've been down to London and other places and met people from different parts of the world who'd actually seen the posts.
Right.
In particular, I met a couple from Miami and we started chatting and it came up in conversation. And this guy said, "I'm sure I've seen you on LinkedIn."
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anyway, it was because of that article. Interesting.
Yeah, that is. And the fact that Richard Branson, remembered, or maybe let's step back a bit, the fact that you had his email address after that dinner, which is like, good. And then he remembered and he took your wife's picture up or your family's picture up into space with him. That's pretty touching. Did you kind of expect, when you met him, did you expect that would potentially be an outcome?
No, I mean, I think I do actually remember now why I had his email address. So as we touched upon previously, I'm a trustee of Listed Near Merseyside, which is a mental health charity. I think I asked him if he'd get involved or donate or something to the charity, and he made a personal donation of like £1,000 or something, which is, it wasn't from Virgin, it was from him personally.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I sort of kept in touch with him. And occasionally I'll get an email, but he's a busy man, isn't he? So
yes, absolutely. Yeah. So you touched on this earlier, right? Your wife went through some health challenges, which is actually how you got introduced to the charity that you're now a trustee of, which is this near Merseyside. Yeah.
So she became ill around, I guess, 2010, 2011, something like that. I joined Barclays, which is obviously where we sort of met when you were working with Verizon there. When she was ill, and we were introduced to the charity around that time.
Right.
And they gave the kids pre-bereavement therapy. Mm-hmm. And then when Kath sadly passed away in 2015, they gave them bereavement counselling as well.
Right.
Which is very, very personal sort of, creative sort of therapy that was provided. And and I just felt like I wanted to give something back because, they're not a big charity. They're quite a small organization. I think they started in the church, listening, hence the term listening in. And they've grown over time. And now, they do therapy for pre-bereavement and bereavement. They also do looked after children, domestic abuse. And they also do suicide postvention, which is a service that not many people probably have heard of, but I think they're now the UK's largest provider of suicide postvention therapy. Because the people left behind from the impact of suicide or somebody taking their own life, I don't think it's very popular to use the word suicide anymore. They go through a tremendous amount of trauma, and I don't think that's really appreciated enough. And there's so much stigma around it; it's very hard for people to talk about it. They do a lot of work with the military. Schools, NHS, lots of different things, but they've grown exponentially since I got involved. And I think, as we touched on previously, I think COVID kind of changed the world.
Yeah.
They had to restructure the way they do things and start doing things over Zoom, Teams, different tech. But I think what that's done is actually helped them because now they've got another avenue through which to deliver their services, whether that's training, whether that's therapy, There's lots of different opportunities, I think, that take the geography out of the equation. So I think that's really helped them. And whilst I was at Barclays, I was fortunate to utilise my position to get them into Barclays to deliver some workshops. They ended up getting invited to take part in Barclays Code Fest last year, and Barclays are actually building them with Microsoft an app, so they'll have a virtual therapy room, more so for children and people, where you can have an avatar and you can be, you don't have to show your face and you can talk, do whatever through that means. I think it's because looking at somebody face to face, whether it's on video or whether it's in a room, can be quite intimidating for people.
Yeah,
and I think being able to do something that's a little bit less intimidating and creative, I think really helps, because a lot of their therapies for children and young people have a creative element to them, because I think it breaks down barriers. It's a good distraction from what they're talking about, that they're doing something while they're talking about it. I think it makes it easier for people to open up about whatever it is that they're going through or have gone through.
And so your role as a trustee within the organisation, what does that involve?
So there's a number of directors or trustees within the organisation who are from different sort of backgrounds. Some are from a health background, some are from a financial background. I help them with their accounting and things like that. And then I'm obviously being from Barclays, from a large organisation, that really helps to be involved with a company like Barclays, to raise their profile and enable them to sort of become more well known. And there's another lady who through the work I did with them at Barclays, who's now joined as a trustee as well. So there's a couple of people from Barclays who are trustees.
Right.
But I get involved in sort of general administrative responsibilities as a director, but I also do a lot of sort of free consultancy with them on their technology, because obviously, they're a small organization. Because they've had to change the way they do things, they don't have the knowledge around, Microsoft Teams, where to store data, security, all those sorts of things. And, even if I don't necessarily know the answer, I'll probably be able to find someone that does know the answer.
Yeah.
And answer their questions, but also in introducing them to companies that can support them on their sort of transformation journey, if you like. I can ask the right questions where their knowledge ends. But also, we've done a bit of fundraising over time. When the kids were smaller, we did some swimming galas and various other things to raise money for them. And I think, again, I'm hoping anyway that that some people at Barclays will continue the work with Listening Ear, more in a fundraising sense, because I know last year they did a lot of work with Maggie's Cancer Centre, and I think it raised maybe 70, 80k or plus for Maggie's. And I did ask the question whether they could do the same thing for Listening Ear. So hopefully somebody will pick up the mantle and continue that. So
right, okay. Well, maybe someone from Barclays will be listening into this and say, "Oh, right, I'm going to pick up the mantle and actually do it." So they provided pre-bereavement counselling to children. Yeah. What sort of form does that take for, and how old were your kids at the time?
So they were, when Kat died, they were 8 and 12. So that started when they were, I suppose, 6 and 10.
Right.
So their clinical lead is a lady called Tracy, lovely lady. And she came round, sat with the kids. They did, memory boxes. They wrote down their fears. They wrote down, memories of their mom. They put them all in the box. They decorated the box. It was very, very, very creative kind of stuff. And she used to come every week for a number of months to the house to do that. They did offer for them to go to like group sessions, but kids being kids, they didn't really want to do that. But it over a long period of time, and you develop a relationship with the counsellors, or with Tracy in particular, which we've all continued to have that relationship with Tracy, obviously, because I'm still involved with the charity. But I mean, I think it really helped. I think grief's a funny thing, though, isn't it? Some people deal with it at the time. Some people deal with it later. If you look at, I guess, as a very high-profile example, if you look at Prince William or Prince Harry, I think some of the issues that they've more recently had with their relationship and things that have happened, possibly down to that grief hitting them a bit later, because that they were, I guess, told as part of their duty that they have to act in a certain way, behave in a certain way, and stiff up a lip and all that sort of thing. That doesn't really help, right? And I think in our case, my eldest daughter, who's now 20, she needed more therapy later on. And she had EMDR treatment, which they use for PTSD, because she had some negative images in her mind of certain things that weren't necessarily correct, but she went and had some treatment for that, and because she started having panic attacks, much later,
right,
a couple of years later. She's now absolutely fine. The younger one is a different kettle of fish. She's a less emotional person. She may be more resilient, and she may be okay. She's very similar to me. If she's got a problem, she'd talk about it. She's not as emotional as my other daughter, but but I always say counselling isn't for everyone, right? I think if you're a very solution orientated person, then you go and see a counsellor or therapist. You sort of say to them, "Well, what's the outcome? What am I going to do?" Whereas for other people, it's an opportunity to get everything off your chest and talk to somebody openly about how you feel. Whereas I think if you're quite an open person, you generally do that anyway. I'm like that, and I think I've said to you previously. I find when I meet new people, or I'm on a night out or something like that, I end up hearing a lot of people's life stories and sort of counselling people, because I think if you're open, you break down a barrier immediately. And then if somebody's got something they want to talk about that they maybe can't talk to their family about, talking to a stranger who's receptive can be quite good for people, right? So I don't mind doing it every night out, but I must have,
unless there's a lot of beer involved in the process, then that's a different matter.
Well, sometimes talking to somebody outside of the situation that's not in a formal setting, can be quite cathartic for people, I think.
Yeah, it helps massively, and particularly if someone isn't involved directly in the situation, so they're taking a more sort of objective view or an outside-in view. That definitely makes a difference. Would you say that this experience, and looking back over the years, your attitude towards mental health has changed from what it was before or to now, or have you always had this kind of awareness about mental health? And
I think I'm 52, right? I went to an all boys school,
right?
Played rugby, hockey, we did boxing. We don't do boxing anymore at school, or something. You never showed weakness at school.
Yes.
My parents, as lovely as they are, and my mum is very emotional. I was always told, we just get on with it in this family.
Right.
You have that typical British sort of stiff upper lip, buckle down, get on with it kind of thing. And I think, opening up to your mates about things, years ago, you just didn't want to do that. It was a sign of weakness, especially as a man. I think you just wouldn't do it.
Yes.
I'm very lucky. I've always had a lot of female friends, and I've always been very open with them, I suppose, more so. But I think now, as time's gone on, you go through things in life, ups and downs of life, and then you go through a big trauma, kind of changes your perspective. And then having children, I think, changes your perspective as well. And then because you never know what goes on in people's lives, do you? But then I think if you start talking about stuff, people open up and surprise you with some of the things that that they've gone through, which you would never have, thought they would, because people put a mask on at work, won't they, or whatever, and you don't really know what's going on.
Yeah, we only really ever see one side of someone, but actually there's so many facets to everyone's life, and you might see someone's like a diamond. You might see one face of someone at work, another face of them outside of work, but then what about all the other kind of faces of them when they're a parent, they're a sibling, they're a daughter, they're a father, whatever they have. It's we don't see those, and we often forget that, right? So
I also think as you get a little bit older and you've traveled and you've had, a lot of different elements of your career, you learn to read people better. And because you've been through something, you tend to spot signs when somebody's burnt out or stressed or upset or whatever, even if they're trying to hide it.
Yeah.
You can kind of see behind the eyes and see what's going on. And I think then you have the ability through sharing to then ask them, are they okay? Is there anything going on?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think, I don't know whether it comes down to like being a good manager, leader at work, but if you've got a team of people, not that you want to deal with all their problems, but you're there to coach and mentor those people and make them successful, right?
Mm.
But at the same time, if you're, that we're all human and everybody goes through stuff, and, if someone's performance is up or down or whatever, there's something going on in a positive or negative sense in their life.
Yeah.
I think the more, I suppose, emotionally intelligent you become and are able to spot the signs of things going on, then, gives you the ability to help people more.
Yeah. Creating that safe space for people to feel they can share, and also, but being willing to be vulnerable, right? And oftentimes you have to be willing to be vulnerable to that person to allow them to feel that they can be vulnerable to you. And then that real conversation happens. Otherwise it's, particularly with men, right? We'll get together for a few beers and we'll sit there, we'll have a couple of beers. You're all right, mate. I'm all right, mate. We'll watch the football and then that's it. And it'll be classed as a great evening, but actually...
But you never get under it.
You never get under the skin.
But I think that's where things have changed. Because, coming back to what I was saying before, I think, when I was a teenager, you never wanted to show weakness. If you made yourself vulnerable, you really did make yourself vulnerable to ridicule or whatever from your peers. Whereas I think now the world has changed. And I think being vulnerable is now seen as a strength because it shows that you're human. It shows that you're emotionally intelligent. And I think it's really, really is seen as a strength now. And also to say, I know it's a bit of a cliche phrase, the it's okay not to be okay thing, but, I don't think it's you don't feel any shame now for saying, actually, I can't deal with any more work, or I'm going through something, I can't do that today, or whatever. People are then more understanding rather than, your performance suffers or whatever because you just can't cope with stuff.
Yeah, that's very true.
And I think also, there's always been that perception around mental health at work. You don't want to, I can't have a mental health issue because it'll affect my career.
Yes. Yeah.
Again, I don't think that's the case anymore.
Yeah, that maturity, I suppose you're right, across organizations has had a big positive impact from that regard. Talking of a changing world, and we touched on this when we were preparing for this conversation, was what role do you think tech is having in affecting people's mental health?
I think it's twofold. I think that the positive side of it is, you can reach out to an organization anonymously and ask for help, right? Great. Or you can reach out to, somebody on a social media platform who is a mental health practitioner or somebody that is an advocate for mental health. And I've had people contact me before on Facebook Messenger. I don't know what to do. I'm in this situation. Because there's I think there's a group on Facebook, like a mental health group for men.
Okay.
Which I joined, and I've had a few guys contact me on there. My wife's left me, or I've started drinking or whatever, and it's nice to have somewhere where people can reach out, right? Mm-hmm. But I think the negative side of it is younger generations are now, I think, more socially anxious than ever before because they're so used to typing away on their phone or sending a voice message on their phone that in big social situations, they shy away. And, when you join, if you join the corporate world, as an example, there'll come a point where you're expected to be in a workshop and be asked to speak, be asked to present, whatever. And I think there's 10 times more pressure on people to do that because of that isolation of using social media. And coupled with, I suppose, COVID and working remotely all of the time, I think it is a big pressure. I think if you couple that with the other negative influences of social media generally, in terms of, there's a lot of stuff on there that's fake. It's hard to sift reality, truth from fake news. This is bad for you, this is good for you, all that sort of stuff. But also the pressures of looking good. I think that's always used to be more for women, perhaps. The glossy magazines with the airbrushed models and whatever. But I think it's the same now for guys. There's a lot of young guys I know who don't like themselves because they see a guy on, they see these guys who are ripped with a six-pack and tan and whatever, perfect teeth on Instagram, and I think that adds a level of pressure.
Yeah.
I quite like James. I was watching a TikTok with James Corden on it, and he had this idea where if you're on social media for 10 minutes, then you're then locked out of social media for 10 minutes. If you're on social media for an hour, then you're locked out for an hour. So it's giving you a bit of a brain break from all those things. But I do worry for the young ones, though, with tech because of all those pressures. But also, again, in the corporate world, you've got to use a laptop. You've got to be able to use, Microsoft products, Teams, whatever it is. And I don't think they're learning those skills at school. They can learn how to swipe. They can use a phone, they can swipe, they can use all the social media. But when it comes to typing a CV or doing anything like practical and productive on technology, that they just don't have the skills. If you couple that with that anxiety and that lack of confidence to stand up and talk in front of people or, strike up a conversation on a train or whatever it is, ask for directions, that's a recipe for disaster, I think, for mental health going forward, because you're going to have a lot of very isolated, anxious people.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think I love the idea of 10 minutes. You've been on social media for 10 minutes, so now it's locked for 10 minutes. Because the thing with social media, of course, is it feeds you based on its algorithms more and more of the content that you like. And before you know it, you spent an hour just doom scrolling, something on Instagram or
well, if you watch that, I think it was a documentary on Netflix about social media. It was about Facebook and Instagram, whatever, And there was a guy on there who designed the endless scroll, and he now regrets doing it. He said because it's like gambling, it's like drugs. It was done to addict people to social media, and it works because everyone does it, right? Whether you're on Instagram, TikTok, whatever, it is either that way or that way. It's an addictive thing, isn't it?
It is very much so, and I have to catch myself as well. Of an evening, I might go onto Twitter. I'm a bit of a news junkie, so I'll be, going through all the articles, and before you know it, it's an hour has gone, and it's like, well, what did I do with that hour?
I know, and you can waste. I think because we do everything on our phones now, from banking to looking for a job to looking for a holiday, whatever.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of productive things you can do on your device, but I think everybody, or not everybody, but a lot of people waste hours a day just looking at nonsense. They're not learning anything from it. They're just scrolling. What else could you do with that time? You could start a business. You could read a book. You could do a course. There's a lot more you can do with that time, isn't there?
And you make a good point, because we use our phone for so many things. You pick up your phone maybe to do some banking online, but now the phone is in your hand. You're going to go onto the social media channels, right? That's kind of the way it works, which isn't great. So we've had this a bit of a heavy conversation, I suppose, in terms of kind of where it's gone. But I knew that was going to be part of the chat. When it comes to success, Karl, what's your definition of success?
It's an interesting question. I was thinking about that, and I guess, when I think back, when you leave school, get a job, you think success is buying a house, having a nice car, going on a nice holiday, and that can be for some people what success is, But yeah. I think ultimately, though, I think if you look at the super wealthy, millionaires, billionaires, whatever, once you've bought your big house and your Ferrari and your Rolex and all that stuff, it's kind of meaningless because it doesn't really make you happy. I think I always used to think I really want to be successful at work. I really want to, be a director in a company or whatever.
Yeah.
Did that, tick. And great achievement. But I think for me, all things considered, I think success for me is my daughters are 17 and 20 and they socialize with me. They want to spend time with me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a big tick for me.
Yeah.
And touch wood, I'm 52 and I'm still healthy. Mm-hmm. My late wife wasn't so lucky. A lot of people aren't so lucky. I class myself as lucky. I'm still here.
Yeah.
I'm still reasonably fit. I think that to me is success because, if you aspire to have things, then when you've got them, you want something bigger. Mm-hmm. You buy a 3-bed house, you want a 4-bed house. You buy a 4-bed house, you want a 5-bed house. You buy a whatever car, then you want the faster one, the bigger one, the shinier one, and it just goes on. But that isn't. I don't define that as success. It's all very material.
Yeah.
And I think when you, however long you live for, and you're lying on your deathbed, the things that you're going to remember are the experiences that you've had and the family around you and the friends around you. You're not going to remember whatever watch you bought 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So that, to me, I think it changes over time. I think when you're younger, success is very material.
Yes.
And as you get older, success is more about people wanting to spend time with you. Mm-hmm. Which tells you you're doing okay if people want to spend time with you.
That's true. Yes. Okay. No, thanks for that. And I think you're right. For people's definition of success will change over time. It will change also according to circumstances around you, right? Yeah. And so that there will be that element. So yes, thank you for that. And that's really what Success Matters about, is exploring what success means to different people and understanding, what that is outside of potentially the material things that.
But I also think, then I suppose in addition to that, I said, when I was younger, I always wanted to be a director in a big company.
Yeah.
Done that, tick. But I think the success of doing that has also enabled me to do more for others in terms of like listening here as an example. That position enabled me to engage other people that I wouldn't have been able to do if I was in a more junior position.
Right. Yes.
To try and make some level of difference.
Yeah, that's a good point. The experiences that you gained through pursuing that success measure, if you like, gave you a whole set of skills that you could apply to something else that wasn't necessarily in your mind at the time, but now is benefiting so many other people as a result of that. So that's really good.
Well, I guess that's why, you see a lot of very wealthy, successful people do a lot of philanthropical things, start charity foundations or fund hospitals or whatever it is. I suppose when you've got all the material stuff and you've got all that money, unless you do something like that, you're never going to feel fulfilled, are you? I think that.
No, that's true.
I guess if you look at, John Caldwell as an example, most of his time, other than running some of his businesses that he still does, is spent doing philanthropic, charitable things, right? Which I commend him for. But but you can see that that's now his success and his satisfaction.
Yeah,
because he's got everything else.
Yeah. So there's that. I suppose that leads to a question where is it like a sort of step change that happens? You're working towards something. You get to a certain level that then allows you to look at success in a different light.
I think so. I think if you've had some level of success, whether you had a goal to start your own business or a goal to be a director or whatever it is, I guess when you've done that tick, then your perspective on what success is maybe changes, depending on what level of satisfaction you get from that success, I guess.
So one of the traditions that I have on this, which I've borrowed from Steve Bartlett's Diary of a CEO, is I ask a previous guest to ask a question for my next guest. And so it's a bit long, which is why I've got it written down here. So my previous guest asked,
do you have any past regrets in your life? And if yes, then how do you deal with them?
Not really, no. Somebody asked me this a while ago, purely because I think, we all make mistakes in life or make the wrong choice or the wrong decision at whatever point. And there's obviously a consequence of that behavior or that decision or whatever. But the person you are now, you wouldn't be who you are if you hadn't made that bad choice, that bad decision or whatever. And if you're a reasonably intelligent person, you've learned from that. And so you do things differently. But it depends on your mindset as well. I'm not really a person that looks back, because what's happened in the past has happened. You can't change it. It's happened. You made that bad decision. You lost money. You said something that unfortunately offended somebody or whatever. All you can do is flip that and change it and do it differently going forward. I've never really seen the point. A lot of people, is wallow the right word? Maybe, maybe wallow in mistakes they've made or whatever's happened in the past. I just never seen the point. I've never seen it. I think if you're, a generally positive, optimistic person, you don't look back. You always look forward.
Yes. Yeah. I think you hit on it with the mindset thing. And the way when he asked this question, kind of what went through my mind was, it's a little bit like as a kid when you're learning to walk, right? You regret falling down, but you don't let that stop you from carrying on learning to walk. And it's the same sort of principle as how I see it. Yes, things may happen that you might regret, but actually there is no regret, as it were, because it was, as you said, a learning experience. And you're able.
But you've also got to fail to succeed.
Exactly.
Succeed straight out of the box. If you don't fail, you don't learn.
Yeah.
And if you ask any successful business person, they've probably had multiple businesses fail.
Yeah.
Before they had the one that makes them the money.
No,
because learn from each of those experiences. So you can't regret that. You just have to use it.
Add it to your superpowers, as it were, that says if you've been through it and apply that. Do you have a question for my next guest?
Well, I guess my question was similar to the discussion we've just had. Mm-hmm. If you could go back in time and remember what success meant to you when you were 18, how does that differ from whatever age you are now?
So how has your thoughts of success changed?
Yeah, and
you're 18
how? Yeah, how do you look at it differently?
Yeah,
and why? What's changed in your life? What's changed your perspective other than age?
Yeah,
to change what you thought success meant as to what success means now.
Yes, and in answer to the why part, for you, it's been through the life experiences that you've had, right?
I think so, your
success has changed.
I think so. Yeah.
Cool.
Because you go on different. Your career never just goes like that, does it? It always weaves and goes up and down and whatever. So, and so does life.
Yes.
And so I think your perspective does change because you never know what's coming. Everyone, some people think their life's mapped out. I don't really think it is.
Yeah.
I think your life changes based on unforeseen circumstance or opportunities that you either take or don't.
Yeah.
But you never really know where it's going to go. I mean, it'd be pretty boring if you did, wouldn't you?
That's true, yeah. Although I suppose something that I do advise people that I coach is you do need to have a goal. It's a bit like, there's that mountain over there, I want to climb it. That's kind of it. Now, my path might be this way, and I might need to go back that way and go around that way.
Yes,
As long as I'm getting closer to the top of that mountain.
but that's about,
The right direction.
when an opportunity comes along, whether you take it or you don't, whether you take a risk or you don't. But yeah, no, I agree completely to have goals, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think some people are very fortunate and have the opportunity to have big goals and achieve them. Other people, opportunities come along and they may miss them and regret that. Going back to the previous question.
Yes.
But that's whether you can see the opportunity when it presents itself.
No, that's true. Yes. And if you live your life in regret, you probably won't see that, and then you regret it. So it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy then.
But it's the same when people talk about, when single people talk about dating, I've just not found the right person.
Yeah.
I always say the same thing to them. But if you just keep your heart open, the right person will come along. If your heart's not open, if you're not looking around, if you look for it, you won't find it.
Yeah.
You can have a goal professionally, financially, whatever. Things still come along and you either take the opportunity or you don't. Same with dating, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good analogy. So we're towards the top of our time now, Carl. If people want to get in touch with you to find out more about Listening Year or to provide their support, what's the best way for them to contact you?
I guess they can get in touch with me via LinkedIn or they can email me.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your story and taking part in Success Matters.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. If you'd like to find out more about how you can find your success, contact me at info@successmatterscoaching.com. That's info@successmatterscoaching.com.